Welcome back to another great day in American history. I do apologize for not being here today, but I had a doctor's appointment, and of course the last appointment was at 2 o'clock. So Mr. Lamb is here with you, but all you'll have to do today is you'll watch this very short lecture, and you guys are then going to pick up a video guide in the back about the 1920s. When you're done, you're going to start watching that. I do know that your homework assignments 2A was due today, but 2B is due on Monday. So what we will do is Monday I will get 2A and 2B, and I'll grade those and get those back to you for Tuesday. On Wednesday, 3 is going to be due, and then our test is going to be on Thursday. Okay, so in terms of notes, yesterday we were talking about new inventions and new things that changed the way that everyone lived in the 20s, and one of the biggest ones was the use of the Model T in the car and how it was connected to all these different industries. And one of the reasons why it actually was able to do that was the use of the assembly line and then the installment plan payment. Now again, please remember, I warned you guys yesterday, do not get the credit card when you're a freshman in college because you do not have a job to pay for the monthly payment. So keep that in mind. But lots and lots of people believe that this age of prosperity during the 1920s is going to continue forever. And since it is going to continue forever, I have no problem with making those payments in the future. So I'm going to see that the assembly line and installment payments are going to apply to all kinds of other industries besides just what you have with the automobile. Part of the reason why this is going to enable to happen is because of the spread of electricity. It is going to now cover about 85% of the homes in the countries. So now all of our wonderful new domestic products can be purchased through the use of electricity, and if I don't have the cash for that, it is perfectly fine because I can pay in installments. So our new things that we have are going to be washing machines and vacuum cleaners and also refrigerators. What we also are going to see that every industry is going to start to expand. Expansion is good because that means our business cycle is functioning. With our business cycle functioning, people are getting jobs. When I get a job, I get a paycheck. When I get a paycheck, I spend money. When I spend money, that means that I am buying a product from another industry or another business, and they get to hire workers who then get a wage, who then spend money, and this cycle goes on and on. So because of all of these factors, most people do not believe that prosperity is ever going to end. So improvements to the economy are going to make the Republicans extremely popular. Typically what we see in American history, and not just here in the United States, but across the world in any type of government, as long as your people are economically happy, they will keep you in power. So if I have money, if I have food, if I have shelter, if I have security, if I basically have everything I need in order to have a really good life, then I'm always going to keep the exact same form of government that I have. So Coolidge decided not to run for re-election. Please again remember he was kind of a reluctant president to begin with, so the Republicans are going to nominate Herbert Hoover, and the Democrats are going to nominate Al Smith again. So Hoover is going to win the election with 58% of the votes, which is only 2% lower from our last presidential election, which again the Republicans did win. All right, so what are we afraid of? We are afraid of communism. We are always going to be afraid of communism. We are always going to be afraid of socialism. And in our heads, the beginnings of the labor unions and the strikes are the first steps down the roads to revolution. And the other thing is that we already had the establishment of the first Communist Party after the Russian Revolution in 1915. So people are afraid of anarchists, we're afraid of socialists, we're afraid of communists. And during World War I, because, again, Russia got out of the war early, and we say that this is something that was bad and it closed that second front, we're going to start to see that the anti-German campaign also is going to apply to Russia, and we're going to see an anti-communistic campaign at the same time. So this is going to be the Red Scare, and the Red Scare is going to be the fear of communists or the fear of Reds. So anyone who's coming to the United States, all these new immigrants in that new immigration wave coming from Italy and coming from Southern Europe, they are going to be from countries that are not 100% democratic. They're more of a socialist country. And because of that, we believe that they're bringing with them these very, very radical socialist and communistic ideas. We see the increase in the number of labor unions. We see all these strikes that happened immediately after the war was over. So we are very, very nervous that this is the beginning of the end of democracy. So what are we going to do in order to stop the Red Scare or stop communism from spreading? So we come up with a plan. Part of the plan is because we do have some terrorist activities that happen. In April of 1920, leading politicians, judges, and businessmen are going to receive bombs on May Day. And May Day is going to celebrate organized labor in the working classes. So 36 bombs are going to be mailed out. They are going to be delivered. Some are going to be delivered by the post office. Some of them are going to be detected before delivery. But basically, what we suspect that the communists and the labor unions are the ones who have actually sent the bombs. So in June of 1920, a bomb actually is going to be set and explode outside the Attorney General's office, who is Abe Mitchell Palmer, and that is going to be the beginning of what we see in the Red Scare. And it's not just what happens at the Attorney General's house. We have midnight bombs for officials in 8 cities, and again, we are going to be one of those cities. So there's bombs in Boston, Cleveland, and also in Pittsburgh. So we need to respond to this big bad terrorist activity that's happening here in the United States, and we think it's because the communists are trying to take over. So Mitchell is going to claim that there's a blaze of revolution that's sweeping across America. The communists are coming in order to change our government. We have to do something in order to stop it. So we are going to have, he calls for, a nationwide hunt for potential revolutionaries that are going to lead this mass revolution. And so he's going to organize Palmer's raids. So Palmer raids are going to target radical labor unions like the Industrial Workers of the World and the Union of Russian Workers. So again, not a lot of evidence against these people, but they are going to be arrested, about 6,000 of them. 500 are going to be deported, and it's almost the same thing that we saw during World War I with the Sedition Acts and the Espionage Act. You don't have a lot of evidence, but you just have to have some suspicion of bad activity against the government, and you can potentially be arrested and then deported. All right, so our biggest case of someone being arrested and deported is going to be the case of Sacco versus Vanzetti. So in April of 1920, there is going to be a paymaster. So this is a guy who sort of goes around to all the different jobs and collects the money from the businesses and then takes that money to the bank. The paymaster in a guard for a shoe company is going to be shot in Massachusetts. Now, witnesses that are there in this garage says that they see 2 Italian-American men who actually committed the crime. And obviously, the paymaster does not have the money. So he was also robbed of about $15,000. It just so happens that Sacco and Vanzetti happened to be in the parking garage around the time period where this event actually occurred. And they fit the description of 2 Italian immigrants. So both of them are going to be arrested. So Sacco and Vanzetti had been known as being anarchists. So they were people that did not believe in a formation of a government. And the police really truly do not have a lot of evidence besides a couple of eyewitnesses who say that there are Italian immigrants or Italian Americans who were seen near the garage. Both of them are going to be tried for the murders. And again, anarchists are people who do not believe in an organized government. And there is going to be a huge international outcry against this crime. Part of the reason is that there is really little to no evidence that they actually committed the crime. So many people don't believe that they committed the crime, and it's going to lead to protests here in the United States and in other places around the world. Eventually, there's going to be a trial. They are going to be found guilty, and they're both going to be sentenced to death. We're going to see that is not necessarily the end of the story. There's going to be an inmate who's already been convicted of a crime. He was going to be in prison. He is going to actually confess that he was one of the people involved in shooting the paymaster in 1925, but the Supreme Court refuses to hear his case and refuses to hear his evidence because they do not want to overturn the verdict against Sacco and Vanzetti. So eventually in August 23rd of 1927, Sacco and Vanzetti are going to be electrocuted. Eventually, as time goes on, this is one of the cases that people really truly try to figure out what actually happened and what was the true evidence. So forensic techniques were used in order to evaluate if a gun actually had been shot, basically taking a look at their clothes to see if there was gunpowder on any of their clothes. And what they did find out is that Sacco's gun, when they analyzed the bullet, was the gun that actually killed the guard, but there was no evidence whatsoever against Vanzetti. All right, changing ideals for American women. American women were always going to be someone that was first the property of your father, and then after that the property of your husband. And it really truly wasn't until World War I is going to occur that women actually got outside of the home and started to work. With that, there was new economic opportunities that provided them options to do other things like entertainment and changing the way that people live. So we see that there's going to be some changes in cultures and new ideas that are going to challenge traditional viewpoints of how a young woman should act and how teenagers should act. So before World War I, the ideal person was a Gibson girl. The Gibson girl is going to be part of a major social group. The Gibson girl is going to have be very beautiful, be fashion conscious, and also be a symbol of social success. So the Gibson girl is supposed to help her husband in order to make his life easier, and also in order to help him proceed in business and succeed in business. So Gibson girl typically had very long hair, and it was curly, and they would pile their hair on the top of their heads. They would wear a very long, straight, dark-colored skirt with a white shirt, and the shirt usually typically had a collar on it, buttoned all the way up to the neck, all kinds of ruffles as well. And you were going to participate in things that were considered to be acceptable for females. You could roller skate, you could golf, you could go bicycling, and you always were going to be chaperoned if you were going to be with a male suitor. The male suitors did have to come to your home, and then you would always be with another adult or somebody else to make sure that everything was okay, what you guys were doing on your dates. Eventually, the male suitor would then ask for your hand in marriage, and then you would get married. But the war changes all of this. Because of the war, women were ambulance drivers. They were working in ammunition factories. They were working in all kinds of different fields. They were doing all kinds of different things. And not only that, they are also going to experience changes because when the men come back, they are not necessarily the same. They went out to war. They went out to fight. They didn't know if they were going to live the very next day. They didn't know if they were going to survive the next hour. So when they did have an opportunity to have fun, they really wanted to have a good time. They really wanted to have fun. So what you started to see was this idea of eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we may not, we may die. And again, women are going to start to embrace this. And they're not really necessarily going to be willing to wait for a proper suitor anymore or to wait for someone who's available. A lot of times they were going to be soldiers who went off to war and their soldiers got killed. So they're looking at seizing the moment and just having a really good time. So the younger generation breaks away from the model, and when they break away from the model, they are going to become flappers. Flappers basically are going to challenge the traditional view of what a woman should look like. Typically, they're going to have very short hair, they're going to wear makeup, and have very short dresses for the time period, which is going to be slightly below the knee or above the knee, and that is going to be challenging the traditional view of what a woman is supposed to act and look like. So from this name, they actually get their name from the galoshes. So what you would typically had seen before is that you would have galoshes or boots that would go up to your knees and you would buckle them up, but the flappers would actually flip them down and they would flap when they walk, which is why they got their name. We also see other things in terms of success for women. Nellie Ross and Marion Ferguson have become the first female governors. We have 145 women that are going to start to serve in state legislatures, and also women are going to start to advance their education in fields that typically were not there for, or were not considered a woman's field. So we see lots of doctors, lawyers, and also architects. Okay, so you guys should have about 15-ish minutes left. So what I would like you to do is go to the back table. You're going to pick up the 1920s video guide, and you're going to start watching it. It's about 23 minutes long, so you will not finish in today's period, and it is not homework. We'll finish it in class on Monday. So what you'll have to do is make sure that you have 2A and 2B finished for Monday. We'll turn those in as soon as you come into class. We'll take some notes on Monday, and then we will finish our video. Okay? All right, I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.